I guess in many respects, again, you can see each album as a transition. So maybe Breakout was a transitional album as well, as much as Heart of Our Time was, really. You know?
Yeah, okay.
Because you can argue that if we hadn't have done Breakout and done the experiments that we did on Breakout, then we would have actually eventually reached Taking the World by Storm, which to me is the second best Demon album.
Yeah.
And it's certainly the best Demon album that I wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. In hindsight, you can say, oh well, we should have done this and we should have done that differently. But really, like I say, you know, we wouldn't have. I don't think we'd have come up with Taking the World by Storm if we hadn't have gone through that process for British Standard to prove to it. You know.
Let's see what's the next one. And during that time, Gavin, after BSA, the British Standard, the bass player Gavin Sutherland left for Andy Dale, I think it was. Do you know why?
Well, Gavin didn't leave. Gavin was not really. Gavin was never really a band member.
He wasn't.
No.
Session.
He was.
player.
He was more of a session player. Yeah.
Okay.
He wasn't a band member. And I mean, Gavin had his own projects going on. You know. So no. Gavin sessioned. He was never actually really officially. Well, I don't know what that means really. Officially a band member. I don't know. He was just a guy that we knew, a great musician, and we asked him to come and play on the albums.
Yeah.
I guess you could call him a band member, really, but he wasn't. I don't know. He wasn't.
Yeah,
you know, he was there, and he came in, and he, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. He rehearsed with us and he played, and obviously on Heart of Our Time, it's Keith Mulholland on Heart of Our Time playing bass guitar.
Okay.
Yeah. So Keith's playing on quite a lot of bass on there. So we never. I don't know. We after Chris, we kind of had a lot of difficulty finding a bass guitarist. The bass guitarists weren't particularly common. Really, I don't know if they are now. Around that time, all guitarists wanted to be lead guitarists or rhythm guitarists.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Predominantly lead guitarists, and trying to find a good bass player.
Yeah.
Who was a bass player, who just wanted and loved playing the bass. Was not easy.
It's not easy to
It
find
was
a
not
bass
easy.
player.
Yeah, and who would fully commit to a band full time. So we kind of tended to chop and change, and it was only when Andy Dale came in on Breakout, then we had really what we considered to be another established band member.
Okay.
The Breakout album. So yeah, and again, Andy's a great bass player.
Yeah.
Very solid player.
Yeah. But he also left until the next album. We can talk a bit about that. Your second favorite Demon album in 1988, 89.
Taking
World by Storm.
Yeah.
There you have another guitarist, Steve Brooks.
Yeah.
And new drummer, Scott Crawford.
Yeah.
Do you know why John Wright left?
Well, again, it's kind of John left, I think, because you can only commit, you can only commit to anything for a period of your life if A, you're enjoying it, B, you're getting something from it, maybe financially, and in a band, and C, you've got to be, you've got to love what you do.
Yeah.
And if any one of those elements kind of like start disappearing, or all of them start going, then I guess that you just kind of think, no, I want to do something else. And maybe it's a natural process anyway. But people, I think, after several years of being in a band, and John had been in the band for a long time.
Yeah,
like that
8
period.
years, I think.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of energy. A lot of money. A lot of involvement. And I think he maybe just got to a natural period in his life where he thought, right, there's other things I want to do.
Yeah, I reckon so.
Yeah, and move on, and I think that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he just reached that point in his life. He reached that time and thought, right, it's time. It's now time to do something different.
Yeah.
It's now time to move on.
I thought a lot about that when I bought this, like I told you yesterday, when I bought this LP on Piccadilly Circus at Tower Records in '89. Oh, there's a new drummer. Why isn't John Wright left? Because I think he was an excellent drummer.
I can't. John was an excellent drummer, and I can't quite remember how the transition happened between John and Scott. I can't remember how Scott came to be in the band, to be perfectly honest with you. But he did.
Yeah.
I can't remember how. I'd have to sit and think about that one. It eludes me at the moment. But a great drummer, really good. He came from a completely different musical background.
He did.
Yeah, his music was he was very, very much into kind of like the indie student scene around the time. Some really, really, really good bands like Talk, for example. He was really, really into, and and bands like that. But he introduced me to, and I thought, there's some great stuff going on here. Some really interesting, new influences in there. So he was very, very much from a different musical background, and he was quite interested in how he brought his own influences into the band and his own drumming style.
Yeah.
I kind of got the impression he was slightly suppressed a little bit, because it was quite the thing to do at the time, to not have a vote and to not be so flashy, to not have a drummer showing off loads and loads of riffs and loads of runs, and keep a very, very steady beat. And I think Dave also thought that John was a brilliant player, but he wasn't a flashy player. He wasn't a show-off player.
No.
He was just a very, very steady,
solid
player, and that's what Dave kind of required from Scott. Although Scott was a lot more than that. Scott had a lot of talent, and I think he was. I personally think he was quite suppressed, really, in many respects. I would have liked to have seen him to just kind of like, okay, Scott, let's just go for it. Let's see what you can do.
with techniques and
solos.
And
yeah, let's see what you can do. I was quite happy about that. But we ended up. It was quite fashionable to have a very, very metronomic drum beat, 4/4 drum beat. In a lot of music around that time.
Yeah.
It was considered to be quite crass, I think, to be kind of like showing off your virtuosity, which the progressive rock bands had done earlier on, because that was kind of like frowned on and seen as being kind of like pompous and all the cliches. Which is quite interesting now, because everybody's kind of like, there's a massive progressive rock revival now, happening, and people want to see that virtuosity. So it's interesting that we've turned full circle. But back then that was kind of frowned upon. So it was seen as being the most important thing. It was like a rock solid, drummer.
Yeah.
And he is a great drummer. Quite underrated, in fact. He did some great work on Taking the Wheel by Storm.
Yeah.
And Scott came in with Steve Briggs and Nick Bushell, and those two guys were from Discharge, from the punk band, who were on the Play record label. And Discharge had kind of like fallen apart after an American tour. They bought out a new album called Grave New World through Mike Stone's Play Records, and that wasn't particularly popular with the Discharge fans, because they were trying to do something new. So they had like big Black Sabbath guitar riffs. And Calvin, the lead singer, had changed his vocals from this very kind of like spitting, vehement, shouty punk vocal to this very, very high-pitched, almost falsetto warble, and none of that went down particularly well, I don't think, with the Discharge fans. So their band disbanded after an American tour, and so those two guys, we wanted a bass player. Andy Dale left.
Yeah.
Again, through work commitments.
Okay.
And then so we bought Nick in to fill the bass guitar, and then his mate Steve, again from Discharge, to come in as rhythm guitarist. So then we thought we could have Jonathan, the lead guitarist, because we were concentrating also on live work. So to do this music justice, we needed two guitarists as well, along with the keyboards, and to get a big heavy sound live. And so Steve came in then and brought his big riffing and his big kind of like rhythmic techniques from Discharge and the punk bands and the metal bands that he was into. And he also, besides his punk background, he also liked the big band. He loved Pink Floyd, and he loved all the big kind of progressive bands. And big rock bands. He was also into Bon Jovi and all the hair metal bands from around that time.
Yeah, that was big.
So he was also into that. So he was ideal, really, bringing lots of influence in, and a great personality. These guys. It was nice to have new personalities, new blood come in. And
Yeah, you
again,
told me
yeah.
earlier this day.
Yeah,
It was
yeah. Oh, quite a personality. Yeah,
Yeah.
big personality.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, totally insane. Yeah, completely mad.
great to have in the band.
Yeah, great to have in the band.
Yeah.
So so we had a really strong band then. You know, a very strong band, and it worked really well. And when we went out live again, and of course Nick was a really nice vocalist, very good backing vocals there as
Nick
well.
Bushell.
Yeah, really nice backing vocals. So yeah, it worked well. It worked well for a time. But it seemed like every single album that we worked through, we would just keep having different personnel coming through each time.
Yeah,
You know,
it was. It was a lot of personal.
Yeah, a lot of personnel changes.
Yeah.
But I guess you know, it's like the DDR stuff that I do. As long as you've got a core nucleus of composers and people who work on the music, it's quite possible then to bring in other musicians to kind of work with you now. But I think, I mean, the one thing I do remember about the Demon albums is each one of them was incredibly intense. Each one was very hard work, and it was very intensive work.
Okay.
You know, and intense albums to listen to and to write and record and go into the studio and to play live. You know. Yeah, it's not kind of background music you just stick on. You know, it's kind of it demands your attention.
Yeah.
You know. And so when you're working on that kind of stuff in the recording studio and listen to that same track over and over and over again, or a section over and over again, it demands a lot. It takes a lot out of you. It's very demanding.
Yeah.
So maybe people couldn't cope with it. Maybe you could just about get through one album. It's like, you know what?
No.
Enough.
It's different in different bands.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's very rushed between people leave
Yeah.
and come in.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
bands they were steady through all the years, like
Yeah.
Marillion.
Yeah.
They are,
Yeah.
I think they only have a drummer change from that first drummer to a second, and through Fish to this new.
Yeah, and you sort of like this.
It's not that much
Yeah.
personal changes
Yeah.
in Marillion.
Yeah.
But Demon had a lot of
A
changes.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
A
like
lot.
buying a new album. Oh, who's on this?
Yeah, a lot of change. But I think because of also it's a job, and it's a business, and you know quite clearly, and you know you expect to be paid, you know, and you expect to start. Okay, I'm putting all this time, I'm putting all this effort, all this creative energy into this. Going out playing live and going into the studios and a huge amount of personal time, and so you need to have, okay, it's fantastic doing it for art, and it's fantastic doing it for creativity, but basically if you want to, there has to come a point where you need to start making a living from it.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you don't start making a living from it, then it starts becoming, you know what, this is just too much hard work for when I'm getting back. You know?
You want to have something back.
Yeah, you've got to have. I mean, of course, you get the accolade of being creative, and we've got some great reviews for taking the world by storm. We won awards for taking the world by storm. Great reviews, great critical reviews.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But again, it didn't really reflect in its sales. And for the amount of work that was put into it, for the amount of money that was spent on it, there is part of you which is nagging away in your head, and you start thinking, you know what? What's the point of this? You know.
That was.
You know, it kind of, and I think that kind of gets to people. It eats away at you eventually, and you start thinking, you know, I'm doing all this effort, all this work, and yet I'm not, you know, I'm
Getting
still
paid.
poor.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah. And then we've got to do another album and go through the whole process again, and it becomes it wears you down.
Yeah.
Eventually, and you start thinking, well, maybe something's not working here, you know.
No, because you put in a lot of time, like you do as a teacher, and you get your pay from the society.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that from the music business,
well, I mean, having a pat on the back's all well and good. That's great. Having people come up to you and ask for your autographs, fantastic. And having people tell you that they love your music and buy all your albums is wonderful.
Yeah.
And having people coming to the gigs and cheering and shouting and screaming and wanting to meet you and singing along to the songs is absolutely fantastic. And you know, and a lot of people would argue, but that's what it's all about. You know, we didn't really fundamentally do it for the money anyway. We did it for the joy of doing it, the love of doing it.
Yeah.
And that was the most important thing. But after several years, it does get to the point where, well, hold on a minute, you know, that's great, and that's all well and good.
I understand.
But you know,
correct.
you know, really, this needs to be a business as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And we really need to start earning. We need to start seeing something from it financially. You know, and why aren't we? You know,
So you weren't.
exactly. So a lot of questions started being asked, and then I don't know, paranoia start, and
Yeah.
arguments start, fallout start, and unfortunately, it's a fact of life. People want to be paid for the work that they do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
of course.
You want to try to make a living from it. That's why we went into it. You know.
Yeah, if you
For the
have
love-
records
for,
out.
for the love of music, but also to try to make a living from it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and be paid for it.
Of course.
But that didn't happen. And then when it didn't happen after taking the world by storm, I think I felt as well personally, it's like, well, you know, if we can't do it with this album, then, you know, this is the best I can do with Demon. This is the best I can give.
Yeah.
I think it's the best that Dave can give. I think it's the best that we can do as a band under the name Demon. And if we can't do it with this, you know, then we're not going to do it at all. So that's how I felt at the time. By the time we finished that album.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my thoughts were, you know, within 6 months after it, it was like, well, you know what, maybe it's time for me to move on, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
maybe it's time to call it a day.
there must have been some income
Yeah, there was
because of
some.
record selling and
Yeah,
tours.
there was some. Of the problem was, I mean, you know, to get the quality of these albums
Yeah.
to the level that they were, they cost a fortune. To you know, they cost a fortune to. They cost a fortune to record and produce, and master, and then print, and then publicise, you know, and then go out on tour. All that costs money.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And a hell of a lot of money.
So the income,
so
the outcome was
Yeah,
like,
well, exactly. So you've got to pay for all that before you start getting paid yourself. You know?
yeah, yeah,
So it became financially, it was just unviable. It just wasn't working. Creatively, it was great.
yeah, yeah.
But also creatively, I think as far as taking the world by storm, we had reached the top of the mountain, if you like. We'd reached as far as we could possibly go. I thought so, anyway.
Yeah,
I didn't think there was really anywhere to go from that.
but you did one. If we move on to 1991, to the last album you were on,
Yeah.
Hold On to the Dream.
Yeah.
But you moved on to that.
Yeah.
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 It was a couple of years later.
Yeah.
But you agreed to do that.
I agreed. I agreed to do it after being taught into doing it. Basically.
It wasn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. I was taught into doing it.
Let me ask you something about this. Is Keith Mulholland?
Yeah.
Who played bass on that album?
Yeah.
Is he the same guy?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
on Heart of Our Time?
Yeah. So he's the
Keith
Anderson recording.
Andrews.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's Keith Andrews.
And
Yeah.
Keith Mulholland? Is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
the same
No.
guy?
No.
No, he didn't?
No. I can't remember now. To be perfectly honest.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keith.
Yeah.
Two Keith.
Yeah. It's Keith Mulholland was the. I'm just trying to think which one was which. One of them was the engineer from Anderson Recording Studios.
Yeah, that was on Heart of Our Time, Keith
Yeah.
Andrews.
Yeah. Yeah.
He played bass on Heart of Our Time, I remember.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So
It's mentioned on the album
yeah.
cover.
Yeah. So Keith Mulholland.
Perhaps another guy is something stupid in
I
that.
think it's the same guy.
Is it? It is.
Maybe he changed his surname.
Okay.
I'll have to find out.
Okay. Because Nick had stopped by.
I can't quite remember, to be perfectly honest with you, because by that time I'd lost interest, frankly.
Yeah. You had.
Yeah. My heart wasn't in that album at all. I didn't want to do it.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
No, I mean, I
You
was
were
all
out.
up for, I was out by then.
Okay.
You know, and for me, Hold On to the Dream was almost like a contractual obligation album for me personally. I don't think it's a very good album. I think there's some great tracks on it. Ironically, I think there's some of the best writing on there, some of the best tracks that we've written together, that we wrote together, myself and Dave. Some brilliant the title track, for example, is a great track. That came out again a true collaboration. Ivory Towers from Dave, great track. Coming Home from me. I really like that. That came out really well.
Yeah, I listened to Coming Home before I left.
Barren to Darkness, again another collaboration, mainly from me. That one, and what was the other one? No More Hell on Earth. Another collaboration that came out really, really well. What else on there am I really happy with? I think that's it really. Those are the tracks that I can cite that I was really pleased with. And I think if the entire album had been of the quality of those particular tracks that I've just mentioned, we could have had another classic album, almost as good, if not as good as Taking the World by Storm. But unfortunately, there was a lot. I thought there was a lot of. I like to call them spare parts on there. The stuff that should have ended up on the editing, cutting room floor, to use a film expression. It should have just gone. So
hold on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there was a lot of. For me, there was a lot of mediocre writing on there, which I just wasn't. I just thought was
rushed.
Well, not rushed. It was just below par. So yeah, I thought there was a lot of mediocre tracks, and they just weren't up to our standard. They weren't up to mine anyway, And I thought if I was to mention a couple of tracks, Eastern Sunset. Excuse me, Eastern Sunset's one of them.
Yeah, you mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah, I just think it's awful. I just think it's absolutely awful. I like the fast, heavy middle section. But to me, it's got the same ideas. It's like recycling ideas, what we've done before. So, like the verse, chorus is Life on the Wire, and then the heavy section works for me. I think that works really, really well in the middle, which is about a stabbing at one of the gigs that when we were on tour. One of the audiences, an audience was stabbed, and we had to stop the gig. And the ambulance and police had to come in and take this guy, to hospital. So things like that. That was really, really effective section of a track. But as a song altogether, it just goes on and on and on forever, and it just doesn't go anywhere. And it's just recycling the same old ideas in a rather 10th rate version of what we've done before, And that's what I always thought after Taking the World by Storm was the danger that would happen.
Yeah.
And it happened, in my opinion.
So if you can compare Eastern Sunsets to your feelings around The Cold in the Air?
Oh well, there's just no comparison.
No.
There's just no comparison.
No. Okay.
No, I wouldn't have had a track like Eastern Sunset on the album. If it had been left to me, that would have gone.
Okay.
It just wasn't, and we'd have waited until we'd have had an album full of songs of the quality of Ivory Towers, for example. Great track, beautiful track from Dave. Dave came with the track, and that was one of the first tracks, one of the first pieces of new material that he played me for the album. And I thought, yeah, this is fantastic. I love it. It's absolutely great. But it was the best. It was the best section that he had. That was the ultimate section. I thought that's going to be a great track. I wrote the middle section for it.
For the
for Ivory Towers. So that was me, and it came together really, really well. Lovely track. And again, Hold On to a Dream. That was me. Dave wrote the vocal lines, and Dave wrote the chorus. And I arranged the chorus chord structures so it went into a really strange key and then dropped back down into the verses and all those riffs that again were influenced from the German progressive band Eloy, but I was listening to really, really heavily around that time. Who also influenced What Do You Think About Hal? So there was some great, some really good quality tracks on there. But they were few and far between, And I think we should have waited. We should have taken a break and waited, Done some touring.
Yeah.
We could have still done a lot of touring based on the back of our back catalogue.
Yeah.
And I think